The war had been grinding on for 3 years when High Command issued the protocol that would change everything. The Keltheron Empire, humanity's most formidable opponent, had proposed an unusual armistice condition, a neural link exchange program. One human soldier would merge consciousness with one of their warriors to prove that trust could exist between species, who had been slaughtering each other across a dozen star systems. Most people thought it was a trap. Captain James Walsh stood in the briefing room aboard the Alliance flagship, staring at the holographic projection of the creature he might bond with. The Keltheron warrior stood 8 feet tall, with 4 arms ending in clawed digits, skin like burnished copper plates, and eyes that glowed with an inner amber light. The alien's name, translated through the clumsy approximation of human phonetics, came out as Vorith. "The link is permanent," General Martinez explained, her voice heavy with the weight of what she was asking. "Once established, you'll share thoughts, emotions, memories. Everything. There's no disconnecting, no privacy, no going back. You'll be 2 minds and 2 bodies for the rest of your lives." James felt the eyes of every officer in the room on him. He had volunteered 3 days ago, the only soldier out of 10,000 who had stepped forward. Not because he was brave, not because he trusted the Keltherans, but because he had seen what this war was doing to both sides, and someone had to try something different. "I understand the risks," James said quietly. The general nodded. "Then you leave tomorrow." The neutral station where the linking would occur floated in dead space between territories. James arrived with an escort of 12 ships. The Keltherans brought 20. Both fleets bristled with weapons, fingers hovering over triggers, waiting for betrayal. Inside the station, James walked through sterile white corridors until he reached the linking chamber. Vorith was already there, standing in the center of the room like a monument carved from living metal. The alien's 4 arms hung at his sides, and those burning amber eyes tracked James with an intelligence that made his stomach clench. A Keltheron technician, smaller than Vorith, but still towering over James, gestured toward 2 chairs that faced each other. Between them stood a machine that hummed with power, cables running from it like mechanical veins. James sat. Vorith sat. Up close, the alien smelled like heated stone and something else, something organic and foreign. The technician attached nodes to James's temples, then did the same to Vorith. The machine's hum deepened, became a vibration James could feel in his bones. "The process takes 5 minutes," the technician said in heavily accented but understandable English. "Once begun, it cannot be stopped. Are you both willing?" Vorith spoke in his own language, a sound like grinding rocks. James didn't need a translation. He could see the determination in those alien eyes. "Yes," James said. The machine activated. Pain came first, white and searing, as if someone had driven a spike through his skull. James tried to scream, but couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then the pain shattered into something else entirely. Memories that weren't his flooded in. He saw a world with 3 suns and cities that grew from living crystal. He felt the pride of a warrior's first kill, the shame of a mistake that cost his squad members their lives. He tasted foods that had no human equivalent, and heard music that made him want to weep. And beneath it all, he felt Vorith's emotions, raw and overwhelming. The alien was terrified, not of death, but of this, of opening himself completely to an enemy, of being vulnerable in a way that went against every instinct his species possessed. James pushed his own memories forward, not knowing if it would work. His childhood on Earth, playing in fields that Vorith had only seen burning from orbit bombardments. His training, his first combat drop, the faces of friends who died in battles against Keltheron forces. His fear, his doubt, his desperate hope that this insane gamble might mean something. The machine powered down. The pain faded. James opened his eyes, and found Voreth staring at him with an expression he now understood. Wonder mixed with horror. "I know you," James said, and his voice shook. "I know everything about you." "As I know you?" Voreth replied, and James heard the words both in Keltharon and English simultaneously, his brain now able to process both. "This is worse than I imagined." "And better," James said, because he could feel what Voreth wouldn't say aloud. The alien had expected a monster. Instead, he had found someone who loved and feared and hoped in ways that were shockingly similar. The first weeks were agony. Even separated by light years, they were never apart. Every thought, every feeling bled across the link. When James ate, Voreth tasted it. When Voreth performed his religious meditations, James felt the pull of a faith built on principles he had never known existed. They couldn't hide anything from each other. Every prejudice, every moment of hate, every time one of them had killed the other's people, it all lay exposed. They fought, mentally screaming at each other across the void. Voreth showed James memories of human war crimes, civilian transports destroyed, colonies glassed without mercy. James threw back images of Keltharon atrocities, entire cities reduced to ash, prisoners executed in ritual displays, but they couldn't lie to each other. And slowly, painfully, they began to see the truth beneath the propaganda. The Keltharon attack on Proxima Station hadn't been unprovoked aggression. It had been retaliation for a human ambush that killed 3,000 civilians. The human bombing of Kelth Prime's orbital farms hadn't been a strategic victory. It had been ordered by a commander who wanted revenge for his dead son. Every atrocity had a reason. Every reason led back to another atrocity. The war was a chain of vengeance, so old that neither side remembered who had truly started it. 6 months after the linking, James and Voreth requested a meeting. Their respective governments, desperate for any sign that the experiment was working, agreed. They met again in the neutral station, but this time they came alone. Voreth had changed. The warrior moved with less aggression, more caution. James could feel the alien's internal struggle. The way his culture demanded strength, but his new perspective demanded something else. "My people think I have been corrupted," Voreth said, as they stood together, looking out at the stars through the station's viewport. "They say you have poisoned my mind with human weakness." "Mine think you've turned me into a traitor," James replied. "They're calling for my court-martial." They stood in silence, two soldiers who had become something neither side wanted them to be. "I have a proposal," Voreth said finally. "It will likely get us both killed." James felt the idea forming through the link before Voreth spoke it aloud. It was insane, dangerous, and it might be the only chance either species had. "Tell me," James said. 3 months later, every screen in human and Keltharon space showed the same broadcast. James and Voreth stood together, the human looking tiny beside the 8-foot warrior, both wearing their military uniforms, both standing at attention. "We are linked," James said. "We share one consciousness across 2 forms. We cannot lie to each other, cannot hide from each other, cannot be anything but completely honest. And in that honesty," Voreth continued, "we have discovered that this war is built on lies. Both sides have committed horrors. Both sides believe they fight in self-defense. Both sides are wrong." James took a breath. "We propose a challenge. Link your commanders with ours. Let them share consciousness the way we have. Let them see through each other's eyes, feel each other's pain. If they can maintain their certainty that this war must continue after experiencing what we have experienced, then let the fighting resume. But if they cannot," Voreth said, his amber eyes blazing with conviction, "then let us find another way." The response was predictable. Outrage, accusations of treason, calls for their execution. But buried in the noise, there were other voices. Soldiers who were tired of fighting. families who had lost too much, scientists who had studied the linking and saw its potential. One admiral agreed to link. Then a Kelthoran fleet commander, Ben Moore. Each linking created another pair of advocates for peace, another two individuals who could no longer see the other side as faceless monsters. The war didn't end overnight, but it began to wind down, battle by battle, treaty by treaty, as more and more linked pairs proved that understanding was possible. James and Voreth never stopped feeling everything the other felt. It remained uncomfortable, invasive, a constant reminder that they were no longer entirely themselves. But they also never stopped being grateful for it, because in sharing everything, they had discovered that humanity and the Kelthorans weren't so different after all. Both species felt fear and love. Both built families and told stories. Both looked up at the stars and wondered what they might find there. And sometimes, the greatest courage wasn't found in fighting. It was found in opening yourself completely to someone you had been taught to hate, and discovering that they were worth knowing after all.